In higher education, finding the right president can have a positive or negative effect on the university. We're looking at the case of executive leadership and corporatization in higher ed. So we're going to overview the case. We're going to look at the characters of the case. We're going to determine the dilemmas of some of the case, discuss some of the case questions, along with examining the organizational theory and leadership concepts. So the case basics. So currently, Prize University is having a presidential search. Their previous president had been in their position for 9 years, resigned. The university is in a state similar to Texas, size-wise, and currently the Vice President of Administration and Finance is their interim president. Now, a little bit about their school demographics. They're a private institution, so not like UTRGV. Their enrollment is about 11,000 students. It is a doctoral high research institution, so their activity is very high in research. They've been classified with a Carnegie classification. They have very qualified faculty, and their funding is pretty high for research. So the characters that are part of this case is Mr. Frank Harrison, who is a retired CEO of a very well Fortune 500 company. He is currently the chair of Board of Regents, and he's a member of the Board of Regents and has been for many years. He wants to be very involved in all the aspects that entitle a search committee. Then you have Dr. John Kramer, who is a vice president, who has been a vice president for about 25 years in different roles in higher ed, coming from finance and human resources to finally administration and finance. So his main responsibility, as you can tell, is decisions on how to spend money. Dr. Gary Keegan, he's an executive assistant to the president. He's worked for 3 other presidents before, and he is involved in the committee's presidential search. Then you have Dr. Mary Glazier. She's a researcher in microbiology. She's a new faculty to the university. She has been asked to be part of the presidential search committee, and she also knows that Dr. Kramer is using her reputation to bring more students into the school. Then you have Dr. William Hunter, who is had been the president of the university for 9 years. He was a very strong academic leader, and he resigned earlier due to health concerns. And during his presidency at Prize University, there was a disconnect between the academic, the research, and the administrative function of what his expectations. And then you have the Board of Trustees, who sees themselves as the boss. They delegate all the day-to-day operations to the university president, but they have budget approval. They have authorization on the vision, the mission, and the strategic plan that affects the university. And a previous president by the name of Steve Curtis had issues during his tenure where he needed to resign. His personal beliefs affected how he hired his staff. So a little bit on the thoughts and beliefs of some of these individuals. So Dr. Keegan and Mr. Harris have similar beliefs, where they believe that leadership and management take precedence over that academic credentials. They feel that many presidents didn't have the understanding and skills to lead the multi-million-dollar operation that is their university. Dr. Mary Glazier feels that she has more of a purist view when it comes to research and feels that not having an academia or an academic person in charge would erode to the research mission that they have at that university. So her fears are very much corporatization at the university would be bad for her and her department. Mr. Kramer has changed his mind about applying for the position, so that's just a thought that he has. He's wanting to apply for the position for the president of the university. Currently, he's the interim, and so there's a little bit of a less learning curve because during his tenure there and during the president's tenure, there was all financial responsibilities would go to Mr. Kramer and the president would handle more of the academic functions, which I know that Mr. Harris believes the complete opposite, where the provost can handle the academic part of it, not necessarily the president. And so Dr. Keegan is looking forward to a different type of search committee. He's very used to, based on the operating procedures that exist for this presidential search, the presidential's executive staff has been the previous ones to lead the committees and manage the committees in the search. And so this time around, Mr. Harris wants to be very hands-on and be very involved in what is going on with the search for a new president. So some of the dilemmas that we're looking at would be who should be the president, what qualifications are most beneficial to prize, is experience in academia or leadership and management more important? Which should the candidate have? And how does the prize avoid the disconnect from the financial to the academic? So the organizational theories that are involved in this So these organizational theories include the bureaucracy along with the collegium. So with the bureaucracy, you have a structure that's very much like a pyramid, like you can see in the picture, along with the leadership being everything comes from the top to the bottom. And then they function on using the standard operating procedures and policies that are in place for the university or the company of how they see. Now for the collegium, you have more of a circular structure, and it's first among equals, so it's always in a group. They always have a consensus on what they want to do, and they always have these discussions to make these decisions. It is not a decision that comes from the top and goes down, so a collegium is it's completely opposite of that of a bureaucracy. So first of all, in a bureaucracy, how does this disempower the voice of those lower in the hierarchy? And so according to Manning on page 9, a place for everyone and everyone in their place. So kind of if you're at the top, you have those abilities to have a voice, but at the bottom, the information just comes down to you. And so you don't make those decisions. Kind of everyone has their place. Communication patterns are clearly mapped out in a bureaucracy. Responsibilities are set up to avoid any repetition. And those people in power who have the power, the position, and the privilege are usually on the top of the hierarchical structure. So how can we influence the search as a member of a search committee? We need to create a buy-in from the members of the committee, especially faculty who may not share the same view as we do, where leadership is more important than the academic part. Having them see your point of view, sharing your views so that you may change their viewpoint. Having a very bureaucratic leadership is very rigid and very structured. It doesn't give much room for flexibility. So now that we look at the collegium, what are some of the strengths and weaknesses that come from that collaborative participant approach? So in that collegium approach, it may be that some of the strengths are that they're very unified. So with the collegium approach, the structure is very fluid. There is teaching as a purpose, their research, their services is very important. But what could happen, and some of the weaknesses would be that decisions may not be made because everyone has a different opinion. When it comes to setting up, it could be changed, contested if somebody feels a certain way. But faculty are very familiar with the collegium approach just because it is how they run their departments and their meetings, and everyone has these discussions. A way that we may consider looking at the strong academic credentials being balanced with those executive management skills that we need as a president of this prize university that does very much research is maybe picking some candidates who are in the business major field. Their PhDs focus on leadership and management, but they're also academic and they've taught as faculty and done research, having the best of both worlds. What we feel might be necessary skills for the next generation of presidents is flexibility. Due to the fact that there's so much change in the world with the technical part, the technology that's coming in now that AI is everywhere, presidents have to be willing to be ready and willing to make those decisions when it comes to those things. So the campus practices, how can we include the community in input for these presidential appointments? We were lucky enough to see some of the maybe having round robin meetings with the candidates where students have an opportunity to interact with them, where faculty has an opportunity to interact with them. Having that opportunity to engage, to kind of have an idea of how it would work. Being in a bureaucracy, when a new president begins their higher education transitioning and being the person in charge and being the office of the president, they need to create that trust with their employees and staff and faculty across the board, creating a transparency, taking away the fear that some of the staff and faculty may feel when this new person begins their new tenure. Here are my references, and thank you.